Hello Y20. So we are the secretaries of Brain Cognitive Society. So in these introductory lectures, uh, uh, we would like to present you the basics of neuroscience, cognitive psychology, that one and AI that one may find useful for their endeavors here at BCS. The lectures here are being recorded, and the slides and the recording shall be shared with you later on. Okay. So here, the domains that we will be covering today in this.
John Actwani.
I'm sorry about that. So the domains that we will be covering today are cognitive psychology, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence. So this is actually a 1.5-hour lectures, which has been divided into 3 parts of half an hour each. And we will have a presentation on each of these topics, and then we will have a question answer session for the same at the end of the lectures. Okay, so over on to Ayushi and her team. I'll stop sharing.
How should I turn off the annotations?
I think they're off.
Oh, all right. So is the screen being shared or something?
Yeah, your screen is being shared. You can start presenting.
All right. So good afternoon, Bacho. Thanks, Devaditya, for that introduction. So myself, Ayushi Chaudhary. I'm a Y19 student from the Department of Electrical Engineering, and I'm also a secretary at the Brain and Cognitive Society. That's it. I will present to you all an introduction to the field of cognitive psychology in the first 30 minutes of this orientation, and questions will be addressed towards the end. So,
Ayushi, I think you can click on present in the top right corner.
oh, okay, yeah. All right, so some interesting questions which I am pretty sure you all must have gotten at some point in your life are: how do we learn? How do we learn new things? How do we learn languages? Why do different people respond differently to the same external stimulus? And why don't everyone learn new concepts using the same methods that they are being taught collectively in a classroom? Why do some people tend to understand things better in a classroom? And why can't some people not understand things the way they are taught? And why and how does motivation happen? How is motivation dependent on rewards and reinforcements? These are the questions that cognitive psychology tends to address. Fundamentally, cognitive psychology studies how people acquire and apply knowledge or information. It is highly influenced by artificial intelligence, computer science, philosophy, anthropology, linguistics, and neuroscience. So, cognitive psychology is based on two assumptions or postulates, you can say. First is First is that mental processes exist and can be completely understood by scientific methods. Human cognition can be divided into individual components called mental processes, whose functioning can be fully revealed using scientific methods. This is what the first assumption in cognitive psychology is. The second is that all of these subdomains of mental processes the information processing model that we are talking about here is a framework that cognitive psychologists use to explain and describe mental processes. The model likens the thinking process of the brain to that of a computer's working. That said, let's have a look at the various subdomains or mental processes that cognitive psychology deals with. First is perception. Perception is the ability of our mind to construct subjective interpretations of the information received from the environment. Perceptual system consists of our senses, processing modules, and submodules that represent different aspects of stimulus assimilation. Concept formation is the second subdomain of cognitive psychology. It is also known as category formation and refers to our mind's ability to organize the ability of perception and classify human experiences by the construction of functionally relevant categories in the brain. The response, for example, the response to a specific stimulus, like let's say a cat, is determined not by that specific instance in is not but the category it classifies to and the accumulated knowledge that you have associated with that category in your mind. And mind you, this is all happening in our brain. The third subdomain of cognitive psychology is attention. Attention refers to our mental ability to deal with information overload. So basically, the cognitive processing systems select some of the information for further processing or manage the mental resources and apply these mental resources to the different sources of information simultaneously. I think we're all familiar with these terms anyway. So the fourth subdomain of cognitive psychology is learning. Learning improves the response of the organism to the environment. In this subdomain, cognitive psychologists study which new information is acquired and under what conditions it is acquired. The study of learning begins with the analysis of learning phenomena in animals and extends to the learning of cognitive or conceptual information by humans. Have been functionally divided into memory for facts, procedures, and skills, as well as working and short-term memory capacity. It's worth noting that the study of the capacity and fragility of human memory is one of the most developed aspects of cognitive psychology. Judgment and decision making is the sixth subdomain of cognitive psychology, and it refers to the ability to form judgments and make decisions by the human mind. Now, we all know that this ability is one of the most ubiquitous for human survival, and all forms of voluntary behavior requires making judgment and forming a choice implicitly or explicitly. Study of this subdomain involves analysis of rational models in our mind, including the differential assessment of risks and rewards. Reasoning is the process by which the human mind evaluates and constructs logical arguments. Computational models have been developed for inference making and analogy, logical reasoning, and Bayesian reasoning. Problem solving is the eighth subdomain that we deal with, and the cognitive psychology of problem solving is the study of how humans pursue directed goals. Problem solving may engage perception, memory, attention, and so many brain areas may be engaged in problem solving tasks, with an emphasis on the brain areas that deal in particular with executive functions. Cognitive psychology of language processing focuses on language acquisition, language comprehension, language production, and the psychology of reading. Cognitive psychologists focus heavily on how humans learn language because coherent thinking is almost impossible without language. Uh, Types of research approaches in cognitive psychology. Now, very much like physics, experimentation and modeling are the major research tools in cognitive psychology. Often, the predictions by these models is directly compared to human behavior. Currently, there are three major approaches in cognitive psychology. First is the approach of experimental cognitive psychology that treats cognitive psychology as one of the natural sciences and uses experiments to arrive at conclusions. It includes eye tracking measurements and measurements of other psychophysical responses and their respective response times. The figure here shows one such experiment where you are measuring the response time, the eye tracking response time to find out fatigue related data. So the second approach is that of computational cognitive psychology, which tries to develop formal mathematical and computational models of human cognition based on symbolic and subsymbolic representations and dynamical systems, which are based on space and time. Neural cognitive psychology is the third research approach in cognitive psychology and uses brain imaging techniques like EEG, fMRI, PET, optical imaging, and neurobiological methods to understand human cognition on its neural basis. It is worth noting that cognitive psychology research has produced an extensive body of principles, representations, and algorithms which have been used to realize successful applications that include first, the development of computer interfaces that collaborate with users and act as intelligent agents, development of smart tools in the finance industry, development of robots and mobiles that can perform tasks that were usually and conventionally reserved for humans, development of bionic components of the perceptual and cognitive neural systems, such as the cochlear and retinal implants. Courses relevant to cognitive psychology that are taught here at IIT are Introduction to Psychology, Fundamentals of Cognitive Psychology, Neurobiology of Affect and Motivation, Neurobiology, and Computational Cognitive Science, amongst many others. Apart from these courses, the Brain and Cognitive Society conducts various workshops that endorse first-hand experience with lab equipments used in experimental cognitive psychology and neural cognitive psychology. There is, and I can't emphasize enough, no prerequisite to join this club. Just hop on with us, stay updated with the club activities, and attend workshops, and we'll get you covered. Any questions? Questions, anyone, regarding these slides?
You may type your questions in the chat box.
Shashwat Gupta, it's fine. Matlab, I didn't go to the technical details because I just didn't want it to mess it all up. So होता है difficult होता है starting में. And please attend the workshop. हम लोग introductory workshop conduct करेंगे in December और या in December. So आप लोग please वो attend करना. हम लोग आपको वहाँ पे scratch से पढ़ाएंगे. You'll get to know that soon, Harsh Bhati. Yeah, the FB page will keep you updated, and apart from that, you also receive mails. You'll also get mails from the S&T Council. Neuroscience अभी आपका cover होगा, विशाल पांडे.
No, department doesn't matter. Actually.
No, the
Means if you are
department
planning
does.
to join the club,
You'll
you
get
will
you'll
get
get you'll get
mails.
mails.
We have a Slack channel.
We have a Slack channel, and we also have a website named BCS. मतलब we'll tell you about that. आप लोग वहाँ पे अपने आप को mailing list में register करा देना.
Yes.
Also, I'd like to add to the workshop. So the workshop will probably be conducted somewhere in December. So try to attend the workshop. You will be covered. We will cover a lot of things like the 3 domains we mentioned here. We shall be covering all the things about that also. We will have some sort of projects related to the 3 domains. Are there any other doubts relating to this specific domain?
Cognitive psychology.
Yes.
That is. I mean, I hope ज़्यादा difficult नहीं था. मतलब मैंने तो काफी simple तरीके से बताया. So any questions?
You were telling us about the what we are going to study or the facts which we learned. Is there any practical things we will do,
Yeah.
like any projects or
Yeah,
Oh
any real
yes.
world things?
Yeah, of course
Lot
we
actually.
of course we will do, because मतलब like we have all these machines and equipments, and we also have a lot of database based on which we conduct
Okay.
Means you will be
Yes.
having a summer camp and all. Then that time you will be doing projects if you are interested in the BCS events.
So to start off, you would need some sort of knowledge base, and only after that you can start gradually working the thing. So the normal procedure to gain knowledge is to what you do is you attend the introductory lectures like this one. Then you attend the workshop. In the workshop, you start learning relevant skills. And after you have learned some sort of relevant skills, you can go forward and take it forward and start doing a project. And there is learning involved in all 3 steps. And the amount of interaction you get with the material and all like gradually increases from the lecture to the workshop where you interact a bit more, and then finally to the work projects where you do a lot of work.
Also, Harsh Bhati, cognitive psychology is a perspective of looking at psychology and the psychological processes with reference to computational models and algorithms that that happen in the machine in our brain machine. That's it. That's simply what cognitive psychology deals with. Yeah.
Oh, so how will I know if I'm interested in cognitive psychology? I got PSY 151 as my HSS course for this sem. So is that relevant in any way?
About
Yeah.
the course,
Basics,
that
yeah.
course, uh, Sandeepan, you were saying something.
Means like PSY 151 is for the basics if we are related to BCS projects or means BCS information. And gradually we'll be knowing about all the material we will be providing you.
Okay.
And you can gauge your interest based on that. Like it's a gradual process. You get to know.
Yeah, it's all very gradual. तो that's why we are stressing कि जब भी workshop होगा या कोई भी next activity होगी for freshers, तब आप लोग please attend करना. आपको हम लोग
Yeah,
वहाँ
we
पे सब कुछ
encourage you to
scratch से
attend.
सिखाएंगे. हम लोग आपको वहाँ पे सब कुछ scratch से सिखाएंगे and we'll get you covered. So no worries about that.
You told to subscribe to the mailing list. So how should we do that?
You go to our website bcs-iitk.github.io. Should I
Okay.
type it again?
No, no, it is there. Then
Yeah, so you go to our website and वहाँ पे there is an option get added to our mailing list. So you just
okay,
click on it and you'll be added. Anyway, you all will receive a mail about the workshop, so you don't need to worry about that.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think further doubts relating to this can go in the chat and we can go forward with the next presentation.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
So I need to make some. Whom should I make the host now?
It's okay, like I think that's fine. If you can stay, or I think you can make Harsh the host. Okay, so is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yeah, so hello, I am Devaditya. I am a Y19 physics student, so who is quite into neuroscience and here at BCS. So as someone was already asking about if there is any requirement for any branch or anything, so as you can see, there is like people from nearly every branch here at BCS. So there is no requirement for any branch or anything. So it's just up to you, your enthusiasm, and how much you're willing to engage and put in efforts. Okay. So let's begin with the neuroscience lecture. So why neuroscience? So you might be wondering, why do we bother studying neuroscience at all? Like the cool stuff, cool in inverted commas, seem to be in AI or machine learning. Well, yes or no. Neuroscience is a fascinating field in itself, and you shall see soon what role it has to play in the development of AI itself, and how it brought it to where it is today. So, neuroscience enables you to build prosthetics for people who are paralyzed and people with disabilities. Like there are too many examples to discuss here where the neuroscience has changed people's lives. So I have attached some videos, interesting videos in the slides. So when you do get the slides, do check them out later. Okay. So the brain is one of the most complex and detailed structures. One hypothesis is that all your thoughts, your personality, your mind is represented as a function of the connections within your brain. So what are these connections within your brains? Well, we look at various ways in which we can extract the connections in the brain. So this is what neuroimaging deals with. And you can say a sort of ambitious goal that might be there is to scan the entire human brain and then upload them onto a computer, thus sort of transferring your mind to the computer. Like personally, I find this rather interesting and like kind of creepy and spooky, but that's okay, I guess. And another reason why we want to study neuroscience is that it is a natural extension to psychology. And as cognitive psychology, as Ayushi shared, so now neuroscience provides a physical basis for understanding the mind, our decisions, and behaviors. And we have been quite successful in drawing parallels between the mind and our physical selves, which is basically the brain. So let's have a quick look on what we shall be covering here. We shall be covering the basics of the neuron, the synapse, which is the connection, which is the point of contact between two neurons, or rather the how the neurons sort of interact. We will be talking about the neuron as a computational unit. We'll be talking about the nervous system and a bit on neuroimaging. So let's look at the neuron. The neuron is the smallest independent structural and functional unit of neural systems. So here I have put a picture of some cortical pyramidal neurons. So don't be intrigued by these words. You'll gradually over time figure out what they mean. So cortical means they're present in the cortex, which is the pink wrinkly part of your brain. And pyramidal refers to the fact that these are pyramid sort of shaped, and these are drawn by Santiago Remani Cajal. So Cajal was a scientist. So he proposed the neuron doctrine. So what the neuron doctrine basically means is that uh, the nervous system is composed of discrete cellular units, meaning that the brain and all the nervous system is made out of small units called neurons. So modern neuroscience, with the help of modern microscopy techniques, has revealed that indeed the neuron doctrine is how the brain is set up. So let's talk about the neurons. The nervous system is made of neurons, specialized cells that can receive and transmit chemical or electrical signals, and glia. Glia are cells that provide support functions for the neurons by playing an information and by playing a role that is complementary to neurons. So they are structural and supportive in structural and supporting the glia. So a neuron can be compared to an electrical wire. So it can transmit an electrical signal from one place to another. So if you look at the nervous system, a common laboratory fly, the Drosophila, it contains around 100,000 or 1 lakh neurons. So this is the same number as a lobster. So this number when you compare this number to 75 million in a mouse and 300 million in an octopus, the human brain consists about 86 billion neurons. So despite these very basic, very different numbers, the nervous system of these animals control many of the same behaviors, from reflexes to more complicated behaviors such as finding food, courting mates, and so on. So the ability of neurons to communicate with each other as well as with other types of cells underlies all these kind of behaviors. So most neurons share the same cellular components, but they are also highly specialized, as seen here. So they have different sizes and shapes, and they sort of relate to their functional roles. So here we'll have a look at a typical neuron. Here you can see there is a nucleus in the main body, which is known as the soma of the cell, and there are smaller branch-like structures coming out of this soma called dendrites. So these dendrites are the structures which normally receive signals from other neurons and integrate it and pass it. Integrate basically means they sum the signals and pass it onto the soma. Uh, the inputs may be excitatory or inhibitory. So these are two words that you will get to know soon. So excitatory and inhibitory things on the membrane potential of the neuron. So what the membrane potential basically is, it's like it is the voltage of the neuron, the membrane potential. So once the membrane potential reaches a particular threshold, it sort of causes the neuron to go into a mode which allows the membrane potential to suddenly increase, and this can be recorded as a spike on a voltmeter. So so this spike is also known as the action potential. So these action potentials, which are generated somewhere at the base of the soma, where the this long thing called the axon connects. This is where the action potential is triggered, and it is sent down the axon, and for other sent down to be distributed onto other neurons. So the axon is a long branch that comes out of the soma, and to enhance conduction, the axon is insulated with myelin, which is a protein which is produced by Schwann cells, which are a type of glial cells that surround the neurons. So yeah, so this was the basic. This was an example of a basic neuron. So now let's look at how it relates to, say, a circuit, how the neuron relates to a circuit. So the membrane of the neuron is like often related to a capacitor because of its ability to store and separate charge. So the extracellular region and the intracellular regions can have different amounts of ions and different ion concentrations, which sort of reflect different charges. So you can have the charge separated, and thus it looks like a capacitor. The non-conducting insulator of the capacitor represents the non-conducting membrane of the neuron. So yeah, so in a neuron, ion channels allow current to flow in and out of the cell. So the here, when more ion channels are open, more ions are able to flow. This represents a decreased resistance, which leads to an increase in conductance. So here you can sort of see that now it starts looking more like a circuit. So in a circuit, in a normal electrical circuit, you would imagine that electrons are flowing through the wire, but here ions are flowing through the wire through the ion channels, which are acting like resistors, and in that sense you sort of have a circuit like behavior. Here you can also see some sort of voltage, you can see some sort of battery cell like elements. So the concentration gradient of a neuron is with reference to the external to the internal ratio of ion concentrations, and this is represented with a battery in this RC circuit. So the battery symbolizes the overall differences in the ion concentration from the inside and the outside of the cell that generate the voltage that is possible for a current flow. You guys must have studied the osmotic pressures and all, where ions try to flow from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. This is the same sort of pressure that we are talking about, and we have represented it through the voltage here. So with these components, a resistor, a capacitor, and a battery, the current flow in a neuron can be emulated. And this is known as the Hodgkin-Huxley model. Hodgkin and Huxley were scientists who proposed this model, and they had also won Nobel Prizes for it. You can read more about it. So here in this slide, action potentials play a central role in cell-to-cell communication, assisting the propagation of the signals along the neuron's axon towards synaptic terminals situated at the ends of the axon. These signals can then connect with other neurons at synapses or to motor cells or glands. In other type of cells, their main functions is to activate intracellular processes in the muscles. For example, an action potential is the first step in the chain of events leading to a contraction. So action potentials in neurons are also known as nerve impulses or spikes, and the temporal sequence of action potentials generated by a neuron is called a spike train. So let's have a look at spikes here in this video. So as you can see, this is a cockroach leg. Uh, in this cockroach leg, they're putting in the pins, and they're recording from it. When you blow air on the legs, it is causing the action potentials to form, and this data can be recorded on a screen where you can see these are individual spikes. And here you can see an action potential like event. Increasing the intensity causes larger spikes to appear. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about the synapse. So now that we know what neurons are, we are interested in learning how these neurons communicate with each other. At the heart of the communication between neurons is the interface between two neurons, that is the synapse. In the general sense, there are two kinds of synapse, electrical and chemical synapses. But for this introductory lecture, we shall stick only to chemical synapses. So in a chemical synapse, there is a presynaptic terminal, which is where the signal is coming from, and a postsynaptic terminal, which is where the signal is going to. So these membranes are separated by a synaptic cleft, which is basically the gap between the two neurons. So the chemical event in the chemical synapse is involved in the transmission of an impulse via the release, diffusion, and receptor binding of neurotransmitter molecules, which is neurotransmitter molecules. So neurotransmission at the chemical synapse begins with the arrival of an action potential at the axon terminal, and there are synaptic vesicles which are filled with neurotransmitters, and these synaptic vesicles fuse with the presynaptic terminal membrane, and they dump their contents into the synaptic cleft. So these contents consist of neurotransmitters, which are small molecules that diffuse across the this small gap, the synaptic cleft gap, and they attach to receptors on the postsynaptic cell. So the neurotransmitters they attach to the ligand-gated ion channels in this situation, and they cause a local depolarization, which again triggers action potential uh, in the downstream neuron, which is the postsynaptic neuron. So here you can see an electron microscope image of the of a synapse. Here you can see that there are two cells, one postsynaptic and one presynaptic, and I think you can try to guess which one is the postsynaptic and the presynaptic terminal. So in the presynaptic terminal, I told you that there will be vesicles, which are like round objects. So here you can see in the presynaptic terminal, the one on the top, there are these small round things which are the vesicles. So let's have a quick look at the what neurotransmitters are. So most neurotransmitters are either small amine molecules, amino acids, or neuropeptides. So there are about a dozen known small molecules of neurotransmitters, and scientists are continuing to find more of them. And so a neurotransmitter influences a neuron in more in three ways. It can either excite the neuron, causing it to produce an action potential. It can inhibit the neuron, which can cause it to sort of become dormant and not react to other excitatory inputs. Or it may modulate the neuron by basically asking it to change. So these are what they are. So here you must have heard like statements like adrenaline rush or serotonin or endorphins. So these endorphins, dopamine. So you might have heard these things before. So these terms before. So basically, these are nothing but neurotransmitters, and they sort of react appropriately in your brains, and they allow you to get the corresponding feelings of say adrenaline gives you the fight or flight, means it sort of readies you for an exciting or a very dangerous situation. So these are like some of the common neurotransmitters. Okay, so now let's talk about the neuron as a computational unit. Okay, so the human brain consists of about 10 billion nerve cells or neurons, and on average, each neuron is connected to other neurons through about 10,000 synapses. So the brain's network of neurons forms a massively parallel information processing system. And the brain has quite a few remarkable capabilities. So its performance tends to degrade gracefully under partial damage. And when compared to programs or computers, which are rather brittle, as in if you remove one part, it is very unlikely that the whole system will function again. The brain can reorganize itself and learn from its past experiences. Okay, so this also means that it can partially recover from damage, and uh, the other healthy units can take up functions that were carried out by the damaged ones. And it performs massively parallel computations very, very efficiently. For example, a complex visual perception occurs within less than 100 milliseconds, which would correspond to nearly about 10 processing steps, assuming that each processing step takes about 10 milliseconds. And this supports our intelligence and self-awareness. So here you can see on the screen that I've sort of given a comparison between the a computer and the brain, and you might have seen the details yourself. Here you can see that the way this is the parallel computing and the number of synapses are huge when compared to uh, that of a computer. There's a difference of 10 power 6, which would be a giga. So that is where sort of computers are lacking out on the human brains. So let's talk about integration of signals and how that happens. So each neuron connects with numerous other neurons, often receiving multiple impulses from them. Sometimes a single excitatory postsynaptic potential, which is basically the membrane potential of the postsynaptic neuron, is strong enough to induce an action potential in the postsynaptic neuron. But often we will require multiple inputs for the same spike to occur. Okay, so what it does is that it sort of takes inputs from all these many branches, it adds them up, and if it hits the threshold, then it sort of causes the neuron to spike and elicit an action potential. So in this way, the neuron is actually summing up the signals. So, so the neuron is sort of like in a very crude sense, it is a sort of manual calculator. It is adding the signals, and it is going forward and producing an output. So there is more to this, that it is not simply just adding. There is more to this, and we will have a closer look at it in the workshop. So now let's look at how we can try to model this. So computational neurobiologists have constructed very elaborate computer models of neurons in order to run detailed simulations. But we can do with much simpler and abstract neurons, which will like essentially capture the how the neural computation is happening. So let's look at a basic artificial neuron. So our basic computational element is called a node or a unit, and it receives inputs from other units, which would be these x1, x2, x3, and xi. And these x1, x2 are basically multiplied with a weight, and then they are summed up together, and then some sort of bias is given to them, and they're summed up together into some sort of function ui. And then it is passed through a sort of activation function, which can be a normalizing function, or say a sort of step function, which looks at which basically sort of makes sure that the signal is within the bounds, and it sort of modifies it appropriately, and then it provides an output. So this is very similar to how an actual neuron functions. And now we look at the brain itself. So As we told, the brain is divided into multiple parts. The brain is not homogeneous. And at the largest anatomical scale, we can distinguish the cortex, midbrain, brainstem, and cerebellum. Uh, each of these can be hierarchically subdivided into many regions, and the areas within each region either work according to the anatomical structures of the neural networks or within it according to the function performed by them. The overall pattern of projections, which will be the bundles of neural connections between areas, is extremely complex, and it is only partially known. There is a lot that we don't know yet, but we had like people research active research is going on. The best mapped and the largest system in the human brain is the visual system. So, and there are some 10 or 11 processing stages have been identified, and we sort of have a very good idea of how it works. So, in that way, there is also multiple other functions that the brain carries out, and different parts of the brain carry out these different functions. Now, we'll have a look at the nervous system. So the nervous system is broadly divided into two parts: the central nervous system, which consists of the brain, brainstem, and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system that consists mainly of nerves that connect that connect the CNS, that is the central nervous system, to every other part of the body. So nerves that transmit signal from the brain is called the motor nerves, and those that transmit information from the body to the central nervous system is called sensory nerves. So yeah, now let's like look at some of the receptors that are present, because we are kind of interested in looking at uh, the things. You may read these once you get the slides. They aren't very important as of now, but receptors are basically neurons that what they do is they transduce energy from the surroundings into electrical impulses, which can be interpreted by the brain. So you have olfactory receptors, which sort of detect smell by detecting the chemicals, taste receptors that detect chemicals in your food and thus give you the sense of taste, photoreceptors that some of them are present in your eyes, and what they do is that they convert light energy into electrical impulses, and they allow you to see, and the others like you can read about them later. So uh, so these so the sensory nervous system is responsible for processing the sensory information, and it consists of sensory neurons, including receptors, neural pathways, and the part of the brain involved in it. Senses are transducers from the physical world to the realm of the mind, where we interpret the information. So these signals are in the form of energy, and then they're collected appropriately, and then they're transduced into electrical signals, and then they're processed by our nervous system, and then we act appropriately. And you can see that there are around six identified systems that we normally encounter, but there are more finer systems as well that aren't mentioned here. Now, I'd like to invite Aditya to take up the neuroimaging part.
Hello, Bachcho. I am Aditya Prakash. I am a Y19 from Aerospace Engineering and Secretary of BCS. Now, we will start with neuroimaging. So, Devaditya, will you cooperate or should I share the screen?
I can do either. What would you prefer?
Like you can cooperate, means if you're there.
Yeah, okay then.
Okay. So, we have went through the structure and working of brain. Like we learned what happens between the brains and how the brain actually works. But how do we know which brain is working and which one is not? For a given process, which brain is active and which one are doing like nothing. So here comes the neuroimaging. Now, neuroimaging are techniques to image the structure and function of nervous system. Like we can also use neuroimaging observations to find a correlation between behavioral activities and the state of the mind. Like we will discuss it later, means sometime. So yeah. So you all must have heard about like MRI, means in they are basically used in medical purposes, but in neuroscience we are interested into something deeper, like neurons and the electrical signals generated. So there are several ways for that, and the popular ones are EEG, electrophysiological methods, calcium imaging, fMRI. Now we will discuss each of them like in details, some details. They Yeah, so electroencephalography, EEG. Now you must have encountered these graphs somewhere, like in movies maybe. So these are basically major electrical signals from the brain. Now EEG is used to record the electrical activity of our brain. Now in EEG we basically use electrodes are placed over the scalp, so it is a non-invasive process. Means there is no surgery involved in this. Now each electrode detects electrical signals from the group of neurons every moment. Like EEG can measure electrical signals on the order of milliseconds, but at the same time each electrode measures the signal of many neurons together, like a group of neurons. So we can tell which neuron is responsible for a certain task. Now, here is a fun fact, like we have EEG device at IIT campus, and we can have a tour for it when we come to the campus. So now electrophysiological method. So this is something like risky thing, means it involves surgery. Now in this method, this also records electrical signals, but in this method, electrodes are implanted into our brain through surgery. Now you must have heard about like Neuralink, the demonstration he gave about its brain chip. So this is based on this method. The chip is actually inserted into your brain, and the tiny electrodes of the chip detect the electrical signal. Now the importance of this method means you can like Neuralink plans to do a lot of things. You must have heard like playing music in your mind, and maybe in recent future they can use it for telepathy. So you can see the demonstration here, like the signals. Okay. Now, those were used to detect like electrical signals. fMRI is quite similar to like MRI. In MRI, we kind of generate magnetic fields, and then this uses this to create a image of the brain. Now, in fMRI, what we actually use is the blood flows to measure the brain activity. Basically, like this is the in brains and sorry in bloods, like there are oxyhemoglobin and deoxyhemoglobin rich blood cells. Now the difference between the properties of these two types is used to detect the brain activity. Oxyhemoglobin is shows brighter as compared to deoxyhemoglobin in MRI. So what actually happens in our brain, like whenever there is a neural activity, the oxygen rich blood cells of arterioles is used. Now this increases a protein. This actually releases a protein which results in the expansion of the arterioles. Now because of this expansion, oxygen rich blood comes to the neuron, and this leads to the increase in the concentration of oxygen. And since the concentration of oxyhemoglobin is higher in such neurons, it appears brighter in the MRI. Okay, now calcium imaging, I think many of you haven't like heard about it. Basically, calcium imaging makes use of DNA recombinant technology with microscopy to visualize the movement of calcium ion. Like when a neuron is activated, the concentration of calcium ion increases inside the neuron. Now, the presence of calcium ion can be detected with the help of fluorescence protein like GFP. Now, and when there is a higher concentration of calcium ion, they basically the fluorescence of GFP increases, and which can be visualized under microscopy. And we can use this for like studying the neural, means which part of the brain is mainly active during a particular task. Like you can see here in the download picture, like this is the recording of a visual cortex of a wake mouse. Like you can see the fluorescence increase of the GFP, like the bright spots. Okay, Dev.
So now it like talk a little bit about the what we plan to cover in some of the workshops. So we might be covering building a synaptic integrator. So basically, we will try to build an artificial model of a neuron. So modeling is one of the core components of neuroscience, and we shall do this to get a flavor for computational models and that describe the potential mechanism for how a neuron might work. We will then look forward and try to understand how the visual system works through a project.
Okay, we have gone through various neuroimaging techniques, but like these are we are not going to do that. We are not going to study the brain in our section. Means there are several experiments performed on neuroimaging, and there are several data sets available for that. So there is a data set which is based on fMRI, like K and Gallant experiment. In this experiment, the subject was shown the some images, and at the same time fMRI was recorded. So we have images and brain scans. We can model the relation between these two, the images and brain states. And when we have the brain state, we can then reconstruct the image. This is what we call as visual reconstruction. Similarly, there are some data sets which are based on calcium imaging, like Stringer and Steinmetz dataset. Now, in these experiments were conducted on mouse basically. Now, the observations of these experiments has been converted into neural pixels, and we can use the data to associate. Like in the experiment, the mouse was given to perform certain tasks, and at the same time, the calcium imaging data was recorded, so we can correlate between the brain states and the task the mouse was performing, and we can establish a relation between these. So in the workshop, we can perform some sort of visualization on these data sets, like see the correlation between the brain states and the task it was performing. Okay.
So now you might be wondering, means these might be sounding very very far fetched and like मतलब बहुत होगा हम नहीं कर पाएंगे. So बिल्कुल भी मत सोचना ऐसा कुछ. The only prerequisites are you should have like a computer with a functioning browser and enthusiasm for the same. Like बाकी सब हम सिखा देंगे, starting from programming to more finer details about the topics. So don't worry, we will be having a workshop soon. Be sure to attend that workshop. Okay, and that's about it. So, do you have any questions for the neuroscience part? You can ask us. I just see that like in the chat there is a lot going on and I haven't read all of it. So
Hello.
if you have a doubt, you can speak up. Actually, I'd suggest that you can raise your hand and unmute yourself and talk.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, yes,
Yeah,
Swati.
Swati, go ahead.
Sir, I mean, I am joining it late, so I get where I get it's recorded lecture.
You'll get that from the BCS website. We'll send you the link in the end in the chat box.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Devarit, can you
Yeah,
stop
don't worry.
sharing? I'll start. Yeah. Can you guys see my screen? Hello?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. So, so this is, we come to the third part, that is the AI part of the lecture. So I just want to say that seeing the chat section, I was very happy that people are discussing. As a kind of research society, we encourage that and we're happy to answer any sorts of question. The discussions are wonderful. So yeah, I'll start with the AI lecture. So I guess तुम लोगों ने AI बहुत सुना होगा. Like one of the main goal of people joining an engineering college is कि AI पढ़ना है, ML करना है. Yeah, right. Just a second. Okay, sorry. So what is AI? AI is the simulation of human intelligence by machines, by computers, right? So AI is a very broad term. So AI कहीं भी यूज हो जाता है, मतलब it is not a very defined definitive नहीं है. So but there are sub classifications of AI which are more defined and which are more used and correct to use. So one of which is machine learning, right? So in traditional programming, what you do is you give the data, you give the program what to do, what you must be doing in your ESC. The computer does what using the data, what your program suggests, and gives the output. Machine learning is a different thing, where you give the data, you try to give the output. Not necessarily always you have the output, but the machine learning paradigm gives you the program. It suggests what relations must be in the data. So तुम लोगों ने ये सुना होगा, डीप लर्निंग सुना होगा, मशीन लर्निंग सुना होगा, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, डेटा साइंस. So it is kind of Venn diagram देख सकते हो. It is related but not related, but there are subfields. Machine learning is a statistical approach to artificial intelligence. Deep learning is also a statistical approach, but a very specific approach where there are deep neural connections. There are deep neurons, hierarchical neurons where the processing happens. So the point of this lecture is to give you just a basic idea of what happens in the field of AI, not to make you a pro or not to teach you how to code a machine learning application. So broadly, machine learning can be divided into three types. First is supervised, then is unsupervised, and then is reinforcement learning. In supervised, what you do, you have a input and output data pair, like that is a train set. Like you train, you show a human a picture of a cat and tell them that it's a cat. After some iterations, if you show them a picture of a cat which was not previously shown, they will be able to predict that it's a cat. So that's what happening. You give a XY input and output pair, the humans or the machines, they create a mathematical model in their mind, and you show them a input label, and they will give you the output, right? That's what supervised is. This is a very uh, upar se definition. When you write a program, it will be more. Yeah. Unsupervised is when you do not know what the label is of the data, but you try to make form connections, or you infer from the data patterns in the data set, right? That is unsupervised. Reinforcement is a learning that through actions and rewards. Like तुम्हारे सामने एक there is a heater, and you touch the heater and you get a burning sensation. That is a reward you get, negative reinforcement reward you get for your actions, right? That's what happens in a reinforcement type learning. We try to simulate that. Reinforcement type learning recently came into news because the I mean, Google DeepMind made a reinforcement learning algorithm that in AlphaGo tournament they beat the human, the best AlphaGo player, you can say. So what is deep learning? Deep learning is a class of machine learning algorithms that uses multiple layers to extract features. So पहले layer में you extract some features. In the second layer you extract a more finer details. In n layers you extract more finer details, and finally you give your suggestion, your output. That's what deep learning is. Deep learning and machine learning and artificial intelligence are commonly used interchangeably, but they are not. They are very specific kinds of things. This is a very cool video. I mean, don't get overwhelmed. This is like a 3D simulation, but very cool. yeah, so video हो गया. So काफी cool video है and I like that. But overwhelm मत हो जाना. This is not what we do when we say we do machine learning. This is just a simulation of what we visualize is happening. तुमने देखा होगा कि there are numbers shown 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and then there is computation happening in the neurons. So ये जो single cells है, they are called hidden neurons or the neurons, not hidden. And the connection between the neurons is called synapse. जैसे पिछले न्यूरोसाइंस के वर्कशॉप में देखा. Okay, so थोड़ा biological and not biological में difference है. In biological, this is the computational unit. This is the neuron. This is cell body. There is dendrites. There are axons. There are axon terminals. There is neuromodulators which control the synapses, etc. But in a computational model of a neuron, we have a mathematical model, right? So what we have is values. Using the values, we apply a function on them. We try to normalize the function because value should not be arbitrary. And then there is output, and then there is error. So this is a typical neuron in a computer. So that you can see that there are differences that in between both of this, and it is a highly interesting topic, highly research topic in neuroscience about is a neuron in a machine learning model similar to a neuron in human brain. The answer is most probably no. There are a lot of differences, but it is a highly researched topic. And neuroscience is particularly a very interesting field because the brain is such very complex. And I mean, the brain does computation which are better than computer models than a, I mean, yeah, I can say a lot. But so the rise of deep learning, you might have heard deep learning. I mean, लगता तो है कि everybody must have heard deep learning because in after 2012, when there was a paper by Alex Krzyzewski of CNN, there is a boom in deep learning. Every startup has deep learning. Every startup uses neural networks. Every application has deep learning. क्योंकि that it gives so beautiful and so wonderful outputs, right? Uh, there is a high accuracy. There are very nice models which are very which give very interesting results. Like तुमने Alexa सुना होगा. Yeah, Alexa is a speech recognition and speech model which also uses deep learning. Then there is algorithms. Then there is trading, AI in trading, AI in uh, voice, AI in cancer research, AI in neuroscience. AI is in everything, like literally everything. So next slide पे एक question है. You can write in chat box. A or B. I mean, तुम्हें क्या लगता है कि which of them is a real human versus a machine generated one? I can't see the chat box, but you can write in the chat box. I'll wait for 10-20 seconds and this is just to show you that power of AI. This is one of the images generated using a technique called GAN, generative adversarial networks, which is also a kind of neural network architecture, which has shown tremendous power. So इनमें से B wala was the real human and A wala was generated by this website called thispersondoesnotexist.com. तुम उस पे जाओगे तो there will be a random selection of photos that are not humans, that are machine generated ones. तो जिसने B किया, congrats. इसमें बोल दो A और B. We'll be wrapping up in a minute, and then you can ask all questions. मतलब last 5 minutes we'll discuss about all three topics: cognitive science, neuroscience, and AI. So both are fake. None of them is real, but yeah. So if you, so you can see that AI are the power of AI. Like uh, there is also a thing called deep fake, where you can seamlessly put another person's face on a different video, and it looks like a real video. So very interesting, very applicable. And AI is used a lot in neuroscience too, both as a research topic and as a architecture or a model to find relations and infer data of the neural data. uh, Thank you. I mean, you can ask questions. Can one join only a AI section? So there is ऐसा कुछ section divide नहीं है. मतलब BCS is a club where you do what interests you. तुम वो project उठाओ, you learn things that interest you. So if you're interested in just AI, you can do that. But yeah, anything related that you can relate to brain and humans and cognitive science, you can do. I mean, you're free to do. You can even do a research project in any of the fields. What softwares do we need to download? Depends on the thing you're doing, but most probably
Like that is
no
a
advanced software.
like that is a very technical question. So you
Yeah.
mostly you will not be needing to download any software. Google has made things much easier for us by providing their collaboratory. So we will be mostly working on Python when we do. So yeah. No, today's lecture was not meant to be a workshop. It was a lecture only. So we are recording this thing.
There will be a
Since you
workshop.
joined late, you can. Yeah. So there will be a workshop later, somewhere in December.
No,
Where
we
you
were
guys
just
teaching
giving an
anything?
introduction.
Yeah. So we gave an introduction to three main topics that are of interest in our society. Some books for advanced biology.
We don't
Harsh,
need
what do
advanced
you mean by advanced
biology.
biology? Do you mean exactly neuroscience, or do you mean all
Any
kinds
Neuroscience,
of
field.
exactly.
biology?
It's more into neurons and all.
Neurobiology you're talking about.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I'd suggest this book called Candle by Eric
Yeah.
Kandel.
Okay.
Principles of Neuroscience by Eric Kandel.
Devaditya, type it in the chat box.
Yeah, I'll
Yes,
share.
yes, sure. Thanks.
Yeah. Principles of neuroscience. Online course of neuroscience and AI.
You can do them on Coursera if you want, if you feel like. Although we'll be
There
conducting
is a good
workshops
course
in.
on computational neuroscience on Coursera by University of Washington, I guess.
Well, I think that might be slightly advanced because it requires some things
Yeah.
from probability.
Yeah.
So if you want for neuroscience and you have the time, we will although we will be covering most of what you will or might need. If you are still interested, you can go forward, and there is a very nice series by Harvard on edX called Neuroscience, and for computational neuroscience. The one that he suggested, and other than that, there is also a very elaborative 3-week workshop that was conducted this summer called the Neuromatch Academy. So their content is also available. So we will be sharing these resources. I'm sure it should already be available on the website, right?
Apart from that, you can also do courses from the brain and cognitive sciences at MIT OpenCourseWare. Like they have provided almost all stuff for free, so you can do that there as well if you find time. That is.
If you're in, yeah, और ऐसा मत सोचना कि this is biology and there is no relation to engineering or maths. You'll be surprised at the level of mathematics that goes into biological
Neurobiology.
systems. Yeah.
Yeah. So any more questions?
Can you please provide a link to these OCW lectures?
Um, can you give me a minute?
Oh, sure, sure.
Anyone else? Any other doubts?
Hello. I actually saw on the three blue and brown video series of neural networks. I'm previously also very fascinated about it. You shared me new links. I will follow it. Thanks.
Yeah. So that video is also very interesting one. He explains the things quite
Yes,
nice.
I love it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Weights and biases and calculus,
Mm-hmm.
gradient descent and back propagation. Very nice.
We
We will
will
share a
also be
Slack
covering
link
them in the
soon.
workshop.
मजा आ गया मतलब क्या बोल
और मजा आएगा यहाँ पे.
I've shared the OCW courses, the link to the courses in the chat windows. You can go.
मैं पहले ही सोच रहा था ऐसा कुछ मिल जाए आपकी इस क्लब मिल गया तो अब तो बात ही और मतलब बहुत ही इंटरेस्टेड था मतलब एक साल से देख रहा हूँ वही सब
क्लब मिलना इज नॉट अ थिंग मतलब IIT में क्लब मिलना नहीं होता है यू हैव टू वर्क तुम काम करोगे तो कोई
मतलब
क्लब
ऐसा ग्रुप मिल गया मतलब
हाँ
मतलब वही
Can this club help us obtain relevant internships abroad apart from projects here? Definitely. Why not?
See, basically, the thing is that the way the club might help you in that thing is that we can help you. We can help you link. We can link you with other people. Like we have linked people within faculty within IIT Kanpur. And there are frequently talks by students from even abroad, like very various places abroad. So PhD students or MTech students, and sometimes even professors that we have in our journal club meetings. So in those meetings, so what you can do is that you might reach out to them through their meetings. So we do provide some like sorts of like the ability to take up relevant things.
The machine learning algorithms and all that you mentioned, will we get to study all these in computer science 4-year engineering courses?
There are courses in the CS department, CS 771 and 786, Introduction to Machine Learning and Natural Language Processing.
Okay,
These are a bit advanced courses.
Okay.
मतलब पर तुम फर्स्ट ईयर या में तो मिलना हार्ड है वो कोर्सेज बट यू कैन ट्राई ऑनलाइन रिसोर्सेज काफी रिसोर्सेज है
First year you should focus on developing the base to learn machine learning and data structures.
Yeah,
like
that
focus
would
on
be your
programming.
mathematics. That would be mathematics and programming.
Yeah. Mathematics where you need to focus on linear algebra, calculus and statistics. तो I would suggest कि तुम लोग first year में ये सब bases अपने clear कर लेना ताकि second year में तुम लोग easily machine learning पे smoothly transition कर सको.
और ब्रांच का कुछ रिलेशन है नहीं दैट वे बिकॉज न्यूरोसाइंस इज अ वेरी इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी थिंग क्योंकि बहुत मैथ्स है देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ फिजिक्स तुमने जैसे इलेक्ट्रिसिटी देखा होगा इन सिनेप्स में a lot of physics, a lot of mathematics, a lot of computer science, a lot of electrical. So basically
Part of
everything.
biology too.
Yeah, obviously.
So although हमारा official timing 6 तक था, so since we started 15 minutes late, we will stick around if anyone has any more doubts.
কানেকশন চলে যাচ্ছে এতক্ষণ থেকে ট্রাই করছি
Alright, so I'm sharing the link to our website. तो तुम लोग जाके देख लेना एक बार, जो लोग पूछ रहे थे about the website.
फेसबुक पेज एंड वेबसाइट को मतलब एक बार देख लेना. That will be your main mode of communication.
Oh shit, no shit, ये नहीं है. BCS.
ये कोई जाता भी है क्या? Any
ये
WhatsApp
है.
group? No.
We have a Slack group, Slack.
Slack की लिंक भेज देंगे.
Also, maybe not everyone uses Slack. Yeah, so other than Slack, we will also be making a messenger group. Okay, so we will be sharing the invites and asking you to join the same soon. So we will ask you to reach out on our Facebook page where you will engage with us. Okay, so stay tuned on Slack and we will share the same.
बाकी the meeting is over. I mean the lectures are over. If you want to ask questions or stick around, you can. Slack लिंक हम शेयर कर देंगे फेसबुक पेज पे. Where can we get the latest updates? Definitely FB.
Get mails.
Yeah. Mails check करते रहो from SNT.
Anything else?
Did you guys face any time management issues? Uh,
Matlab, I think this is a very open-ended question to the SECs here. So
yeah.
time management is something that you will have to learn here at IIT Kanpur. So abhi ke liye, I guess you can like itna jaan sakte ho ki we do have our classes going on right now, and हम लोग club work अभी भी कर रहे हैं. Other than that, campus में activities जितने भी student activities चलती है ना, so they run in parallel with academics as well. So time management issues, we do face them, but that is how we learn, and you will learn the same too. So this is a very sort of personal question जो लोग personally reply करेंगे इसका. But the thing is that time manage करना is something that you will eventually learn. We can help you out personally, so I guess you can reach out to us individually. और किसी को कुछ बताना है, पूछना है, मतलब हमारा लेक्चर्स कैसे थे, कंटेंट सिर के ऊपर से गया या फिर
हाँ, कुछ टिप्स या सजेशंस या
फीडबैक
criticism,
रिगार्डिंग द
you are welcome. I guess we should end.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you बच्चों.
Thanks, बच्चों.
Take care.
चलो, see you around at BCS. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.